horse racing, because today we're diving deep into the Oaklawn Razorback Handicap.
That's right, and we've got the Bridgenet race form right here. It's got all the stats, insights, and expert predictions, everything we need, really.
Everything we need to make you sound like a horse racing pro by the end of this deep dive. So you ready to break down these contenders?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Awesome. Now, to be honest, when I look at this Brisnet race form, it's a little intimidating. Can you give us a quick crash course on, how to actually use this thing to pick a winner?
It can be a lot. I mean, you've got all this numbers and abbreviations. It's like a secret code. But at the end of the day, we're really just looking for those key indicators that tell us how a horse is likely to perform. And for me, that starts with prime power and class ratings.
Prime power and class ratings. All right, so walk us through it. What exactly are we looking at here?
Well, think of prime power like a snapshot of a horse's recent performance. It takes into account their speed, track conditions, how they've placed in their last few races, all that good stuff. And it boils it all down into a single number. That way, it's easy to compare.
The higher the prime power you got of the horse, right?
In theory, yes. But it's not quite that simple. We also have to consider the class rating, which basically tells us the level of competition a horse has faced in the past.
Gotcha. So a horse could be winning all these smaller races, racking up a decent prime power rating, but then you throw them in with some tougher competition.
Exactly. That's where the class rating comes in. It helps us figure out if a horse can really handle the pressure of a bigger, more challenging race, like the Razorback Handicap, for example.
Okay. So with all that in mind, who jumps out in terms of prime power for this particular race?
Well, at the top of the list, we've got First Mission. He's sitting pretty with a prime power of 145.2. That definitely puts him on everyone's radar.
Okay, First Mission. Big prime power rating, got it. But, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm seeing that he hasn't raced in over 6 months. Is that a concern at all?
It's definitely something to think about. A long layoff like that can really impact a horse's performance. Sometimes it's a good thing. They come back all refreshed, full of energy, but other times they can be rusty.
So with First Mission, we're looking at a lot of potential, maybe even a top contender, but there's that added risk factor. Okay. Who else should we be watching?
Well, right behind First Mission in terms of prime power, we've got Croupi. His rating is 143.8, just a hair behind. And the thing about Croupi is that he's been pretty consistent. He's been running well against some pretty tough competition, which tells me he can handle the pressure.
Yeah. Look at this. Second place in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. That's not easy. But I'm also noticing something in his race history. In the Clark Stakes, he got tangled up with another horse and ended up finishing 4th after a disqualification.
Oh, yes, that was a tough one. Definitely not his best race.
Could that incident affect his performance in the Razorback, do you think? Like mess with his confidence or something?
It's possible. I mean, anytime a horse has a bad experience on the track, it can have an impact. But, on the other hand, that 4th place finish might not be a true reflection of his abilities. He did get tangled up after all. So, in a way, his prime power might even be underestimating his potential.
Okay, so we've got First Mission, the potential superstar with a question mark, and Croupi, the solid performer with a bit of a past.
Right. You got it.
Anyone else we should be adding to our short list?
I think Skinner's worth watching. He's got a prime power of 141.8, not too shabby. And his speed rating from his last race, that was pretty impressive.
Ooh, a dark horse. I like the sound of that.
Maybe. But here's the thing. He's got a new trainer for this race. And you never know how a change in training routine will affect a horse. Could be a good thing, could be bad.
Right. So again, another layer of uncertainty. Lots of potential, but we just don't know for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, before we move on, I'm looking at the list here, and both Banishing and Cook Creek, they've got prime power ratings in the 140s, putting them up there with the top contenders. Is there anything we should be aware of with these two?
Yeah, good catch. Both of those horses, they've had some recent layoffs, which always throws a bit of a wrench into things. See, their prime power ratings, they're based on races from a while back, so we have to be a little careful about how much weight we give them.
Okay, similar to First Mission then. That layoffs could be a factor.
Exactly. Their recent form, it might not be the most reliable indicator. Those prime power numbers, they could be a bit deceiving.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into Banishing. I'm seeing a recent win on his record, which is always a good sign. But his trainer, David Jacobson, he doesn't have the greatest track record in graded stakes races. How much does that matter?
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, that recent win is definitely encouraging, but we got to consider the level of competition he's been facing. Stepping up to a graded stakes race, that's a whole different ballgame. And his trainer's history in these types of races, it's definitely a red flag.
Plus, on top of that, Banishing is moving up in class for this race. Another potential hurdle to clear.
For sure.
Lots of ifs with Banishing, it seems. What about Cook Creek? Anything jump out at you from his stats?
Well, one thing that catches my eye is that he's got the highest dirt speed rating at today's distance.
Ooh, that's good, right?
It's a definite advantage. He's shown he can be fast. And if he can maintain that speed against this field, well, he could be a real contender.
Yeah, and he did win the Lucas Classic Stakes back in September. But looking at his past performances, there's some inconsistency there. What do you think? Is he a horse that could pull off a surprise win, or is he more likely to crumble under pressure?
Honestly, it's hard to say. Cook Creek, he's a bit of an enigma. He's definitely got the potential to be brilliant, but he hasn't been able to put it all together consistently. We'll just have to wait and see which Cook Creek shows up on race day.
Okay, so we've covered the top contenders, and it's a mixed bag, to say the least. We've got potential, risk, and a whole lot of unknowns. Now, obviously, there are more horses in this race, but are there any other names that stick out to you? Any potential sleepers or dark horses we should keep an eye on?
Oh, absolutely. There are a few more names we need to discuss, and trust me, some of these could really shake things up.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
Let's start with Alexander Helios. He's coming off a win, and he's been looking really sharp in his workouts.
Okay, so that tells us he's in good form, right?
Right, but here's the thing. Looking at his race history, it looks like he's moving up in class for the Razorback.
Ah, so how do you think he'll handle that tougher competition? I mean, it's a big jump, right?
It is. It's always a gamble when a horse moves up in class. I mean, he's proven he can win, but can he do it against more seasoned horses? It'll be interesting to see how he performs.
Okay, so Alexander Helios, he's one to watch. Who else? Give me another name.
Well, you can't talk about potentially upsets without mentioning Baddest Good Boy, can you?
Baddest Good Boy, come on. That name alone, he's got to be a contender. But what's his story? What do we know about him?
Honestly, not a whole lot. He's only raced twice in his career,
Okay,
but he won both of those races.
won both. All right, so he's undefeated. I like it. But is that beginner's luck? Or is he the real deal?
It's hard to say for sure with such a small sample size, but those results, you can't ignore them. He could be a serious contender.
And like Alexander Helios, he's also moving up in class for the Razorback.
Right, which is a big test, but you know what they say about young horses? Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. They just go out there and run.
Yeah, that fearlessness can be a real advantage. Okay, Baddest Good Boy, another one to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. And then there's Henro.
Enro, okay,
Yeah, now his jockey, Rafael Bejarano, he's been on fire lately, winning races left and right. But Henro's trainer, Chris Hartman, well, his record in graded stakes races, it's not quite as impressive.
interesting. So we've got a hot jockey, but maybe not the best trainer for this type of race. Anything else about Henro we should know?
Well, he has a bit of a tendency to fall behind early in races.
Oh, that's not ideal.
Not ideal, no. Especially in a race like this where the competition is so fierce, he really needs to be up there with the leaders from the start.
Okay, so mixed bag with Henro talented jockey, but a few things working against him. It's like every horse has its own story, its own set of strengths and weaknesses.
It's what makes handicapping so challenging and so rewarding. When you really start to understand all the factors involved, it's like solving a puzzle.
Absolutely. And sometimes those unexpected pieces, those dark horses, they can really change the whole game. Speaking of the big picture, I'm looking at the starting positions here, and I'm noticing that Baddest Good Boy, Henro, Cook Creek, and Red Route 1, they're all starting from the outer gates. Does that matter?
It can definitely make things more difficult. Historically, the outside post positions in this race haven't been as favorable.
So they have to run further.
Well, not necessarily further, but it can be harder to get a good position early on, and that can put them at a disadvantage.
Okay, so it's not a deal breaker, but it's something to keep in mind.
Exactly. Another piece of the puzzle.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. Talked about the favorites, the long shots, the dark horses. Our listeners must have a pretty good understanding of this race now.
Hopefully, they're starting to see the whole picture.
But let's get down to it. What do you think? Who's going to win this thing?
You know, picking a winner is never easy. It's a combination of analyzing the data, trusting your gut, and yeah, maybe a little bit of luck. But if I had to put my money on one horse, I'd say First Mission.
First Mission. You're sticking with him, even with that long layoff.
It's a risk, I know, but his prime power is just so impressive. And his past performances, he's proven he can compete at this level. If he can come back strong, I think he's got a real shot.
Okay, so you're banking on his talent to shine through. What about Krupe? He seems like a pretty serious contender.
Krupe's definitely a threat. His consistency is remarkable, and he's got that experience. If First Mission isn't quite at his best, Krupe could easily take the win.
And then there's Skinner. With that speed, he could be a real wild card.
Absolutely. If that new training regimen has paid off, Skinner could upset the favorites. He's definitely one to watch.
Okay, so we've got our top three First Mission, Krupe, Skinner. And don't forget about those long shot bets we discussed, Banishing and Henro for the show. What do you think?
I still like those picks for show bets. Show bets are all about managing risk and finding those horses that might not win but have a decent chance of finishing in the top three.
Right.
And both Banishing and Henro, they've got the potential to pull it off. Banishing has that momentum from his recent win. And Henro, well, with Bejarano riding him, anything is possible.
Okay, so we got our favorites, our challengers, and our long shots. I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on.
It's time for them to make their own picks now.
Exactly. So who do you think will take the crown? Will it be First Mission? Or could Krupe or Skinner pull off an upset? Or maybe one of those long shots will surprise us all. This is going to be a good one.
It is, and that's what makes horse racing so exciting. You never know what's going to happen until they cross that finish line.
So true. All right, before we let you go, any other thoughts or insights you want to share with our listeners? Anything you think they should keep in mind when making their bets?
Well, remember that anything can happen in horse racing. Upsets are always a possibility.
Right.
So don't be afraid to trust your gut, do your research, check the latest odds, and most importantly, have fun.
Great advice. And that wraps up our deep dive into the Oaklawn Razorback Handicap. We analyzed the contenders, we crunched the numbers, and hopefully we've given you the tools you need to make those winning bets.
Good luck, everybody, and enjoy the race.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for joining us. And as always, may the odds be over in your favor. All right, so we've analyzed the contenders with the risks, identified some long shot bets that could pay off big. Now let's bring it all home. Make those final predictions for the Oaklawn Razorback Handicap.
It's going to be a close one, no doubt about it. So many talented horses in this field.
All right, so let's circle back to your pick for the win, First Mission. Are you still feeling good about him, even after all our analysis?
I am. His talent is undeniable. And if he's back in top form, I think he'll be tough to beat. But like I said before, anything can happen in horse racing. That's what makes it so unpredictable.
Exactly. All right, so assuming First Mission is your pick for the win, who are you looking at as his biggest challengers?
Well, I'd say Krupe is the obvious one. He's just so consistent, and his experience at this level, that gives him a real edge. If First Mission has any trouble at all, Krupe could easily sneak in for the win.
Makes sense. What about Skinner? You mentioned him early as a potential wild card. Could he upset the favorites?
He could. That speed he showed in his last race, that was no fluke. And with that new trainer, who knows, maybe he's unlocked some hidden potential. If Skinner runs like he did last time, he's definitely a threat.
Okay, so we've got First Mission, Krupe, and Skinner as our top three. But what about those long shot bets we talked about? Banishing and Henro for the show. Are you still liking those picks?
I am. Remember, show bets are all about mitigating risk. And I think both of those horses have a legitimate chance of finishing in the top three. Banishing, he's got that recent win under his belt. That momentum could carry him a long way. And Henro, well, with Rafael Bejarano as his jockey, he can never count it out.
So even if they don't win, they could still be profitable.
Exactly.
All right, folks, so there you have it. We've got our favorites, our challengers, our long shots. It's time for you to make your picks. Who do you think will cross the finish line first? Will it be First Mission? Will Krupe prove that consistency is king, or will a dark horse emerge from the pack? This is going to be an exciting race.
It really is. It's anyone's guess at this point.
Absolute. So do your research, trust your gut, and most importantly, enjoy the thrill of the race. No matter who wins, the Oaklawn Razorback Handicap is shaping up to be a race for the ages.
I completely agree.
And that concludes our deep dive into the Oaklawn Razorback Handicap. We analyzed the contenders, we broke down the stats, and hopefully we've given you the knowledge and insights you need to make some winning bets.
Good luck, everyone, and remember, have fun out there.
That's all for today, folks. Thanks for joining us. And as always, may the odds be ever in your favor.